Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Tim here with the TMA Connection, your podcast that is focusing on people that are making a difference in the lives of others. And man, we got a special one here today.
Oh boy.
Yes, sir. The head chief, CEO, founder of Cummings and Company. Gosh, you started this in 2006. You've grown the business from up to 700 agents and 12 locations, and just opened one in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Crushing it out here in the real estate industry. He's just a down to earth guy, super laid back, and people have a lot of respect for this man. So,
thanks, Tim.
Dave Cummings, the Dave Cummings of Cummings and Company. Welcome to the TMA Connection.
Hello, all, and all of Tim's friends. Thanks for having me. Did you purposely wear the blue and gold shirt?
You know, I definitely, yes.
It's very Baltimore. Under Armour.
Under Armour, blue and yellow.
Yeah.
You know,
Very
trying to make
cool.
that company connection there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know you're a very busy person, so but you just actually put in a new podcast studio, so that's why we're not up at the Bel Air office today. We're down in Perry Hall.
Yeah. And you're one of my very first interviews for helping me out with letting me borrow your videographer guy Drew here behind the scenes. So I wanted to make sure that I pay you back for your help, and Drew helped me set up this whole room.
Yeah,
the mics
it's
and everything.
Really cool.
So.
Very cool, very simplistic, lots of lighting.
All right. Yeah.
You did a good job, man.
Thank you.
You did a good job.
Thanks, Drew, too.
All right, so before we get to the story of Dave Cummings, the founder, you know, he's this big. The name's all over the place. Got number one market share in Baltimore City for 8 years. You got number one market share in Baltimore County and Harford County, and then you're up at near the top of the list with some other counties too.
Trying.
Before we got to all that, where does Dave Cummings come from?
Oh gosh, I grew up in Baltimore County, just outside of like Rogers Forge, Towson. So I'm born and raised Smaltimore. I went to public schools. Rogers Forge, Dumbarton for elementary, middle. Went to Loyola High School, which is like their colors are blue and gold as well. So it's one of like the most Baltimore things, or most Maryland things to create a company that uses colors that are based on the same colors as your high school.
There you go.
Because that's just a very Baltimore
Loyola
thing. It's like,
pride.
where did you go to high school? I went to Loyola. So then I have the stupid colors of the signs everywhere, blue and gold. And then I have an 8-year-old child that goes to a different school, a different private school that's not blue and gold, not Loyola. He's at a different school because Loyola doesn't start until middle school.
Okay.
And he's in elementary school still. But I think it's kind of funny because I have like all this loyalty to my high school. I have all these signs, and then my kid goes to a totally different school that's maroon and white. Kind of a joke, but so born, started, locally. I went to Towson University, graduated with a secondary education degree. I always think that the teaching role I never actually got into. I was working in the restaurants. So I think a lot of where my development kind of came from is twofold. Is one, that sort of teacher background that I wanted to do is sort of like, a lot of nurturing, educational, empathy. I think, being able to work with kids provides all of that, even though I never really went deep into teaching. I graduated, I did the student teaching, I just kept working in the restaurant, and then sort of fell into real estate. I actually don't love public speaking.
Sort of fell into real estate.
I don't love public speaking. So when I was doing my student teaching, like just even teaching in front of middle school children or whatever, high school kids of small groups of 12 or 6, I did not like public speaking. So I kind of feared like having to actually take a teaching job. So I kept working the restaurant, and the restaurant business really helped cut my teeth in terms of like customer service and dealing with the public and multitasking all the time and everything. So it really gave a really good sort of those two things kind of gave a good transition into real estate. And now as like the broker, and I'm looking at different people when I'm hiring people, I've found that, people that are like police officers, that have done their 20 years or 25 years getting their pension, people that work in, the hospitals, nurses, things like that, previous educators like yourself, really transitioned well into our industry because they have that same sort of skill set of being able to multitask and also, really customer focused service.
Serving. They're serving. All service fields.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's we're obviously in this to make a living and agents make a commission at the end of the day, but we're all living off of our referrals. We all live off of that sort of feeling of when they get to the settlement table, you pass over the keys or the seller gets their proceeds check, of how much, they look over you and how much you help them and how appreciative they are to you for everything you did when you're a really good, strong agent. The clients see that and value that. So that that feeling that you get is sort of what drove me in the early days, and it sort of continues to drive me, seeing all you guys working with, so many people. I just love the sort of synergy that we have in being a locally owned company in, Maryland. I mean, we're licensed also in Pennsylvania, Delaware, DC, and Virginia, with our main focus in Maryland. And I love seeing our growing network and helping out the public and people saying, "Oh, I worked with Tim. He did a great job." And Tim brought brought the buyer to my house, and I was listed with another Cummings agent. Everything went really smoothly. So, seeing the successes of you guys really helps drive me to want to improve things and do things better. So, it's a little bit of my background. Yeah, I mean, I started, got my license in 2003.
That's what I was going to ask. How old were you in 2003?
25 or 24. I think 25.
Okay.
And I worked for my college landlords, great guys. They went to Naval Academy. They're very smart, but they were much more focused basically on rental properties. Obviously, they were my college landlords, so they owned that house.
Yep.
Bunch of houses in the Towson area, Charles Village area, northern part of the city. And great guys, still very friendly with them today. But I just, after 3 years working with them, I got my broker's license, which is a 6-month class to be able to basically have your own company with regards to licensing with the Maryland Real Estate Commission. So I started the brokerage at 28 years old. I was still pretty young, didn't really know what I was doing. But I got the ball rolling, and, I just have slowly but surely built it up. So, we're at about 19 years now of doing this.
Wow.
So it took me about 8 years to get to my first 100 agents. And when I first started, I was like,
8 years to get to 100 agents. Okay.
And with my business model, which we don't need to go in too far, but I was like, if I get to, 100 agents and, do the math, I'd be pretty good. I can probably just live off of that. And then sort of my business maturity was not really there.
Right.
Because I didn't really quite understand, as you bring on more people, the more staff you have, and then the agents are going to need more resources. One person's going to want this, one person's going to want that. We need to do another location over here if you want me to stay with you or come to you, and just a lot of different things. So my math didn't work out exactly in my head, but it just, as I grew the business, I was like, we can take on more. And I'm at a point where it's, if I can find the right people, I kind of want more of a quality over quantity.
Yeah, sure.
But if I can find the right people, I'm willing to kind of continue, going as far as that will take me.
Did you in that journey over those first 8 years of bringing on 100 people? There's a balance of how big do I want to make this, versus I'm pretty satisfied with where I am right now. For me as a team leader, I've struggled with that, because I have two amazing agents on my team, and they're like brothers, family. But then there's other times where maybe I do want to kind of spread it out a little bit more and go a little bit bigger. Not becoming a broker owner, but
yeah, it definitely goes back and forth all the time in my head.
Does it?
I mean, at 47 now, I'm trying to think, but I feel like a solid 10 years of just going hard.
Yeah.
Because I just know myself, and if I don't have a lot going on, I tend to be happier when have a lot of things I love, accomplishing things, to-do list every day. So I find happiness in getting things done.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, years ago when I was getting to that first 100, I had an agent, Mark Risha, come to me and say this is starting to get wild here. You're getting, I see you're interviewing people all the time now. You're having people join all the time now. And there was a real, once I hit 100, it went from 100 to 300, really quickly.
Oh, wow.
And you don't lose a lot of people when you're smaller like that. Now it's 700 people. I have people, retiring and moving out of state and all sorts of different things that are just happens more often. But so, there was a lot of growth with not a lot of staff at that point because we really weren't sure, how it was going to go. But I remember Mark saying to me, like, are you like mentally prepared for like what you're getting yourself into? And it was kind of like a reality check at that point. I was like, you know what, like, yeah, like, more people, more problems or whatever,
right.
more money, more problems, as the song goes. So he kind of gave me a reality check, and I said, okay, like, yeah, like I am going to have to like sacrifice and deal with additional stress.
Yeah.
But yeah, less really on call, like, 24/7. I mean, I try to set boundaries as much as I can, but like I have to be constantly worrying about not just like the agents and their clients and the transactions, but, all the different office locations. We have cold spells where we have, pipes bursting. We have spring days where, things are leaking, and, all sorts of stuff to sort of, just lots of different balls always going on.
But you're only one guy.
Sure.
So you're only one guy. So over the years, you've created leverage for yourself.
Yes.
For other people to take a role in this. In going back, how long was it after 2006 that you actually hired your first administrative type person?
Yeah. So my first administrative type person started out working for me for $25 a week.
Oh, wow.
A week.
Let's go. That's a good hire.
And she did like the open house email blast that, we have, whatever, 4 or 5 open houses going on because we only had, whatever, 30, 40 agents. And she did the open house email blast. But like prior to that, like, I was doing the cleaning. I was doing the 1099s at the end of the year for the tax purposes. I like literally did every aspect of the business. Paid the commission checks, was still selling houses myself. I don't compete with the agents anymore, but I still had to sell houses to keep the lights on in the office space. And then, yes, I hired someone, and she, from that, sort of initial role, kind of became like my right-hand person and helped me. Years later, she, her husband had a job change. She moved to Florida, and then I had to, take on additional hires. But yeah, the first hire was sort of like a nervous, definitely committing to a salary and everything. But it changed so much for me to free up time to not have to worry about paying the commissions every week and paying the bill, writing the checks for all the bills and everything. And then the next hire was like more of an accounting person, and it just sort of snowballed as things grew with the locations and things of like what different roles we would need. And now I have probably approximately like, it's not a huge staff for 700 people, but I guess it's about 12, 15 full-time staff members at different locations, and a couple people behind the scenes doing the financials and stuff that do work from home. But we have a good staff, and a lot of the staff that I've hired, I've been so fortunate, and they're so fantastic. They're like the first people like in the role. Like, we're here at the Perry Hall office. Katie Fedichik is our front desk, office administrator at Perry Hall. She's the only person that's ever been in that role.
Okay.
So a lot of different staff that I've had, have either, worked their way up from one role to a higher role. Melanie's operations manager. She used to pay the commissions. Julia, who works for me, used to review paperwork. Now she took over Melanie's role of paying the commission. So I have a fantastic staff. I'm really, really lucky. And I think part of it is I definitely am cognizant of them not making sure they're not overworked, they're not on call like nights and weekends to the agents all the time. It's just not fair for them to have to be on like sort of the same schedule that we're on. As a W-2 employee. So I've tried to create some good things to keep them motivated and stick with me. And right now we've been in a good mode for quite a while.
I mean, you've definitely been crushing it, and certainly maybe it didn't always seem that way. It's like over time, it's a bunch of small things that tend to snowball into something a lot bigger.
Yeah.
What systems do you have now, or what's 1 or 2 systems that had really made a difference for you now as the leader of the company that that has just helped leverage more time for you?
We have like our sort of what I call like our back end system, Agent Tools. That was something that I took on early on with our website developers. That basically is just a place that organizes all of our marketing material, all the little things like the W-9 that you may need to get paid a commission from a different real estate company. All these little different things that kind of took the weight off of like always having to call me or call one of my staff members. That you can kind of log in, you can get our buyer guides, our seller guides, a lot of our different marketing material, review our different education videos that we have. So building out this sort of back-end system that's completely sort of proprietary has been a huge time saver over the years, and has helped the organization of like how we operate.
So when something comes up and you're like, man, I could really free my time up with this by and then you maybe put it up.
Added it to Agent Tools.
Added to the
we
system.
Just every time we get like a question that we get like frequently or more than once or twice a week, we're like, how can we incorporate this into Agent Tools in an easy way for people to find it, access it. Obviously, there's like a search bar that you can type in, whatever it is, but we have like, these tile dashboards. So that was something that was, has been really helpful for myself and everybody at the brokerage for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Certainly without struggle, there's no growth. And this is something that I'm learning constantly, is that I should embrace these struggles that come up. What has been your biggest struggle over the past few years?
Oh yeah.
And how have you overcome that?
I mean, one of the things is I've definitely learned that there's a lot of people that just don't think long term, and so one of the things I've definitely, it's easy to get sidetracked when you kind of there's always a lot going on. There's Bitcoin out, there's this, there's that. There's oh my gosh, this person's making having great financial success doing this, doing that. So have really been a steady Eddie is one thing that I wanted to, mention to you today is that longevity of just really becoming like an expert in your field and not getting distracted with a bunch of different things, is I find to be very important. I mean, the struggle is always just that there is really no downtime in this business. I guess that's one of the more things I struggle with is just turning off. I'm constantly having to keep my brain on, check in my phone before I go to bed. First thing when I wake up, what fires I may be working out. So the struggle is just sort of trying to find that leverage. I just inherently do not feel it's right to not respond to someone. And it could be the most phishing, email from somebody in, Washington State wanting to try to sell me something. And I still just find it that it was part of how I was raised or whatever, is just to always sort of be polite. And I just will always sort of respond back thank you for reaching out to me, but I'm just not interested, know. But it's also sort of drives me nuts because a lot of people are just delete, and they get through their day, and I just have this thing, and so it's kind of so I eat up a little bit of my time. Some of my struggle is I probably could delegate more. Delegation, even though I have staff, delegation is something that you really always have to sort of work on, leveraging delegation. But it's been a blessing and a curse because I think I am great with sort of maintaining relationships because I don't just push things off to my staff. I want to be as involved as possible. Certain times where I'm doing certain things, I will have to just forward an email and hope that and know that my staff, Melanie, for the most part, will sort of assist and jump in, and she'll say Dave's in a meeting right now and why I'm not responding to them. But I really try to be very involved to a fault and make sure that everybody is feeling that I'm on their team and in business with them, and not just hey, go do your thing and I'm not worried about you to a fault. So the struggle has been probably just not using enough sort of leverage, but it's again, as I said, it's pluses and minuses to everything, blessing and a curse.
Sure.
So
did you ever have anybody like a mentor or a coach that helped you through the business development of building Cummings, or was this just surrounding yourself with people that could help you and trial by error?
I definitely figured out a lot of things on my own. My college landlords I initially started working for were great. They taught me a lot about investment properties and the financials of a capitalization rate and what's a good sort of purchase, which has helped me a lot with now I own 6 of the office buildings where we have office spaces. So they gave me a lot of good base on just financial compounding interest and things like that. So that was very helpful. I did have someone early on that had left a role at Berkshire where you came from, and I did a couple meetings with her, sat down. She was sort of the first person to sort of say you need to hire someone. So I said all right, fine. I took her advice and that pushed me. But I haven't really been involved in any really continual sort of coaching or anything. I'm more of just self-motivated, very much a list maker. And, I just don't feel good at the end of the day if I haven't gotten a lot of things checked off my list, In the beginning, I definitely was timid. My business maturity at 28, even in my mid 30s, wasn't really there. And then about my mid 30s, I was starting to have children. The business was getting more and more competitive. There was some other different sort of national players moving into the Maryland market, shaking things up. And I kind of was like, you know what, if I don't really step up my game and stop being such a wimp and get out there more and call people and stuff, basically, then I'm going to get eaten alive and I'm going to have nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the fear of survival, kicked in right as I had gotten the base of everything going. That sort of came along and it was like, okay, eat or be eaten,
right,
kind of thing. And the competitiveness of growing up playing competitive sports my whole life and everything kind of kicked in the business world and sort of pushed me to improve, step it up. Yeah.
So as we're going into 2025, we're now in March. Oh my God, it was March.
Let's go.
First quarter's almost over, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're looking forward to in 2025?
2025, we just finished our big annual awards meeting last week, which I give the State of the Union speech, which is, again, I don't love public speaking, so that's a big hurdle for me.
Well, the good thing about your State of the Union address is that we don't stand up and clap every time you say something that we like.
Yes.
Or half the room.
Yes. I get a couple claps, which gives me a chance to breathe.
Right.
Because I do get nervous, so that gives me a chance to reset. But yeah, we just got through that meeting. I do a couple big annual events, but we have our annual Preakness party at my house coming up in May on Preakness Day. So that's a family friendly event. I have moon bounces. So that's one thing that someone told me a long time ago is if you're going to do it right. Go all out. If you're going to do anything, don't. There's different sort of events where they have these drink tickets and you get 2 drink tickets. And, to me, it's always been if we're going to do something, it's going to be, food for everybody, lots of different options. If you partake in alcoholic beverages, you get whatever you want, as many as you want.
Right.
I'm very much into the whole driving safe in Uber, though. That type of stuff stresses me out.
Absolutely.
I don't want anybody being injured, on behalf of something that I, initiated.
Sure.
But yeah, this coming spring we have a couple different events. I'm actually heading out of town this Friday to go to Europe. Haven't been really any big trips since before COVID.
Okay.
So my girlfriend and I are getting on some trains, and we're gonna millie our way through Switzerland and end in Milan, Italy.
Oh wow.
So that's always my focus is always.
Have you ever been to Europe?
I have a couple times, not a whole lot.
Okay.
I don't have a ton of European experience. I've been to Paris and London and Ireland. Italy, but not extended periods of time ever. So this is a whole week. But that's always been a big thing for me is setting a goal or trying to work towards something, and that just helps motivate me. So I definitely love to travel. Right now my kids are young; it's not happening all that much.
Sure.
So, but
how old are your kids?
12 and 8.
12 and 8.
So, yeah, 6th grade and 2nd grade.
Okay, gotcha.
So they're going on spring break with their mom, and my girlfriend and I are going on spring break with ourselves.
Okay.
But yeah, doing stuff like that is sort of helps push me to say let me make that call, let me do these things so that I can afford to go on a trip like that.
Right.
So that's always been a motivational thing for me is what can I do in my personal life ahead of me to set a goal and work towards that.
Yeah. When you talk about setting goals in business, and we talked about this a little bit in the podcast that we did together.
Sure.
Which people are going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Episode number 2 for me.
That's right. What do you focus on with your goals for the company, for agents? What's that method look like?
Definitely love setting goals. You have I have my yearly goals that I write down in an email that basically is at the bottom of my email, and I'm very particular about my inbox not getting too full. I want to be able to see my whole inbox. I try to clear all my emails almost every day.
I got 21,000 in my inbox.
So the bottom email basically is the goals. So I am sort of, it's in front of my face, and they're the big goals, and then new things come up and I rework it. But I'm very much, when one of the big goals is done, I highlight it in red. It's just my way of saying that one's done, and I slide it down and I slide the next one up. So they're constantly you got to you have to actually write them out is my big thing, and you have to check in on them in some sort of formatted, scheduled basis. For me, it's always been like, that email just sits there.
Yeah.
And when I clear out my inbox down to that one email that never gets deleted, and I'm like, okay, where are we with the goals?
That's awesome.
Do I need to rearrange it? Do I need to add anything else for this year? Now that things are, moving on, I checked off some of these other boxes.
Yeah.
Now, like, what else can we do to improve? And then there's lofty goals, that, are longer term, and then there's shorter term goals where it's like we have to get this done. And I am a real driver in terms of people that need that if they're not getting accomplished. I set like a high standard because it's like I feel like it's my job as the owner of the company, the leader, to provide to you guys so that you can provide to your clients.
Right.
So it's if I come up with a goal of creating a marketing piece, whoever's creating that marketing piece, I give them a very nice time schedule. But like if it's not happening, they definitely hear from me, and I'm like, hey, we have to get this done. Like I'm reporting. You're only reporting to me, but I'm reporting to nearly 700 people. Yeah. And I've promised them this. I did our State of the Union. I told them that this was going to happen. So this needs to happen, or I need to find somebody that's going to have it happen.
Right.
And so I can, yes. But, I'm always obviously polite unless someone's really, really not doing their job.
Right.
But I definitely lean into them. Like I have people that are, I have to answer to.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, you do your thing, you're an independent contractor or whatever. It's like I really take pride in like providing to you so that you can provide to your client.
Right.
Because I love the synergy that we have, that, we have a great market share in so many areas in Maryland now that, a locally owned company is really sort of helping, move Maryland basically, helping all of our different clients, whether they're buying or selling, going from one place to the next. It's a huge step for both sides of the transaction.
Yeah.
And I take it all very, very seriously.
Okay. Very cool. So what does Dave Cummings do for fun?
For fun these days?
Other than going to Europe. But I know you're a big surfer too.
I like surfing, but obviously that's not around here. So I mean, back in my earlier days, I would be down. There was a huge swell that just came through the East Coast, and I would be down, Assateague Island in a wetsuit with a hood and gloves and boots in the snow in that water.
Oh my!
And now just with children, school pickup and everything with the business, I've sort of X'd that out. So I do have a surf trip planned for El Salvador at the beginning of May.
Okay.
I'm excited about that. It's sort of like my annual thing, but. I'm playing a little pickleball here.
Are you a pickleball guy?
I like racket sports. Tennis is like just... My serve is terrible in tennis. It's just too wide of a court.
Okay.
It just can be slow. You're chasing the ball all the way to the back of the fence. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the speed of pickleball.
Okay.
So, I haven't played a whole lot this winter, but I will play as it gets warmer. I'm in these, different group texts. So... it's great little networking. It's set a time, start at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, finish at 9:30. Can plan it out really well. So I'm liking pickleball. I've been digging into more and more to podcasts.
Yeah.
On my free time, I definitely like educating myself and learning things. Not to say that I won't watch a good Netflix series.
Okay.
And binge it as much as possible when I have the free time, but definitely like trying to learn. I'm not a big book reader.
Okay.
Obviously that's a great thing, but
who are you watching? Who are you watching on YouTube?
I'm not very smart, so reading for me is like,
Okay. Well,
it's difficult.
It's funny though, because I've interviewed several people who have had that same response. And it tends to be the entrepreneurial people that are constantly on the go, constantly taking action, that just, they don't have time, whether they're listening to audiobooks or they're listening to podcasts, but they just they can't sit and read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff that I'm into is different real estate folks. Jared James is a guy. There's definitely different real estate people that I'm following to kind of pick up ideas, like different people, different parts of the country. With the political landscape that we've been into, the algorithm has really sort of popped into the political realm. And what I kind of do is I kind of like to try to watch like a little bit of both sides of different people. I find it, very interesting basically. And I kind of sort of come to this realization. I wish that people no side's perfect.
No.
And I hope that when it comes to politics, if we're not on the same political side, that we can always just still respect each other and not get upset or not, you don't like me and I don't like you because, maybe we could have a debate on why you think your side's right or whatever. But, I find it very interesting what's happening these days and kind of very unfortunate.
Yeah.
I don't,
like you vote, you vote this way, you're a bad person.
Yeah. And
it's like, what?
Yeah. I think everybody should be able to vote and have discussions on how they want. But, you see people like on social media, they kind of are like trying to shove their opinion down your throat. And like, I don't think that's the best approach.
Right.
I think it should like not be these social media. I don't know. It's a whole interest, but I've gotten into that, but it's kind of disappointing of where we are with that. But I don't know if you want to hold that on this show, but
that's all right. No, I mean, it was a good, safe answer, but I wish we could get to a point where we could speak our minds without the fear of offending somebody else.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting, and we don't have to dig too much deep into this, but what I find the most interesting is that two people can look at the same situation and completely have these complete opposite perspectives of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just wild.
Yeah, and you may find somebody that you think that you're really close with, and you're gonna be like, oh, so and so, Bob is definitely going to agree with me on this, and you're like, oh my gosh, Bob's totally the opposite.
Right.
But it's like you still should maintain your friendship and relationship with Bob. You guys should just be able to joke about the fact that you're on different sides, and not hate each other because you're on different sides.
If your name is Bob, we love you.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
I don't know. I just there's a lot of managing 700 people and seeing so many things. I'm like, oh, why? We shouldn't let this sort of create angst amongst us. We should embrace other people's opinions and have discussion about it, but not dislike them,
right?
Or want to cut them off,
right? Yeah,
or in some way, shape, or form out of your life or whatever.
Yeah.
But all right,
I got two more questions for you. Two more questions. One personal, one business.
Sure.
All right, let's go personal first.
All right.
Do you have any habits that you do on a daily basis that really drive your success as a business owner?
I mean, I definitely like to wake up early.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wake up early. Not like crazy early, but in the 5:30 to 6 o'clock hour. Make sure I get some peace time with myself. Exercise is always been important.
Mm-hmm.
List writing has been extremely helpful for me. So, I'm just a paper list person on top of setting goals and more written down lists, longer term lists. But list writing, getting up early, exercising.
Just any kind of daily habits. Something that's like just non-negotiable. Almost every day you have to do this to have a great day.
I really try not to, start taking work calls, before 9 a.m.
So you're taking care of yourself from 5:36 to 9 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, I'll work on some emails and look at some things that I need to work on and not like the small stuff. So I try to take some time for myself. I mean, I've definitely learned over the years, like nights and weekends, trying to give myself, I was raised where I wasn't really allowed to talk on the phone on Sundays. We went to church. I couldn't cut the lawn on Sundays. I wasn't really even allowed to spend the night at someone's house on a Saturday night so that I would be prepared to go to church on Sunday.
Okay.
My dad was, very conservative. So it was really good values that I learned in terms of financial, not overspending, paying all your bills on time, paying all your people that you owe money to on time. And really sort of taking that Sunday as a day, of the week to sort of recharge, and maybe different people can do that on different days. Maybe Sunday is not the perfect day for them to recharge, but one of the things that has really helped me is basically just making sure I try to have as much downtime. On Saturday I'll go to Home Depot and work on things around the house and maybe answer some emails and get some calls from agents. But Sunday, again, if there's an emergency in our industry, I have to be on.
Yeah.
But if I don't have to be on, I don't try to stir up much on a Sunday, and I really try to have a relaxing family day.
Yeah.
So that when Monday comes, I'm ready to kind of get after it again.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I'm an agent at a different brokerage, and I'm sitting down with you, and you want to talk to me about coming to Cummings and Company.
Sure.
What are the 4 or 5? I don't know if there's a specific number, but just the 4 or 5 bullet points that you want to hit in that meeting to encourage me to come to your brokerage.
I mean, one thing I think I always sort of start off, at least at some point, is like there's no bad real estate brokerage. There's just a right fit for each agent at a certain point in their career.
Yep.
And that fit for each agent changes at a certain point in their career. You started at one brokerage, Berkshire Hathaway, which is a fantastic brokerage. They have great managers, and those managers will train you on the contract, all the nuances of how everything you have to do legally and protecting your client. But then after a time, you've been there and you want to learn something, go somewhere new. So I always say there's no bad brokerage. It's just what's the best fit for you. So that's one of the things that I kind of sort of say in those meetings. And then kind of, what are they looking for, from the owner, from the company. I try to let them know that, I'm not a micromanager, but I'm also, very much involved. So I'm not going to pressure them to do certain things at a certain time in a certain way. I give them as much freedom as possible to run their business how they want without, as long as they're making sure they're following all the laws and rules of the Maryland Real Estate Commission, the Maryland, the code of ethics that we have with the National Association of Realtors, all those different types of things. So I give them a lot of freedom, and that I, really encourage, get everybody getting to know each other, digging in, building more relationships. So the culture of our company is great because we're not publicly traded. We don't have a board of directors. I don't have any partners, so it's just me. And so, if you sort of understand how I operate and how I like to be, I encourage seriousness when it comes to the business world, but also work hard, play hard a little bit.
Sure.
And just, the sort of collaboration that the brokerage has is what I in different events that we have, whether it's a business event or a social event. We have our Preakness party coming up in my house, which has moon bounces and water balloon toss. Yeah. So not only is it that you're invited to something that I'm hosting, and that your spouse or significant other is invited, but your children are invited to that event.
Right.
So I have different things throughout the year that are business focused, family focused, couple focused, and so that. Those types of events are, well attended and a lot of fun. So, I feel like we're sort of stand out differently than a lot of the other real estate companies with regard to that. And that's something that a lot of people have been drawn to. And I think those relationships they build here kind of, from these different events and stuff, keep people here. On the other side of this wall, there's 4 ladies that are sitting down doing a book club, which isn't real estate related and, on its frontwardly or whatever, but they're going to end up talking some real estate and what they're doing with their clients and everything and how they can improve each other, I'm sure, probably at the end of their book club discussion. So it's great. It's a great sort of environment that I feel like we have here, and that's what also really helps motivate me to keep going.
I couldn't agree more. I came here in September of 2023, and it's been a phenomenal move for us. Great people, great culture. I think one of your downfalls. You ready? You're like, what the hell are you gonna say? I think one of your downfalls is that you're a better public speaker than you think you are.
Oh, thanks.
You are, and you're genuine. You're humble. You're down to earth.
My heart's beating.
Very approachable. Right, I know, right? And I'm not even getting a raise for this, But the leadership, the systems, the process that you've put into place. You've gone through a lot. You've learned along the way. You've put the right people in place. You recruit the right people to promote that culture. Cummings and Company is a phenomenal place to work, and
appreciate that.
And I wanted to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
And you are a better public speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, man.
Thank you.
When we were at Cummings and Con. You're phenomenal. You're not giving yourself enough credit.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.
I stress out about it a lot.
I know.
The day after Christmas, I'm like,
oh boy, it's coming up. If people want to reach out to you, whether an agent maybe wanting to come to Cummings or just somebody that wants to maybe pick your brain about business or anything like that, how can people connect with you?
I think just give a call into the office and tell Kim, who answers our phones, what you're looking for. You can Google the Cummings and Company and office number and just get it offline and reach out. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If you like this episode, please share it, comment, put it out there, help us grow the channels. And until next time, live your life to the fullest, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Woohoo!
That was good.
Did you like this episode of the TMA Connection? Well, you might want to check this one out right here. Go ahead. Click it. Go ahead.